So who are the real Jews?
Who are the people? Who are the modern, yes, who are the descendants? So we know, and I believe, and I agree with you as a Christian, that God promised this land from modern day Iraq to modern day Egypt to this people, the Jews, to Abram's, actually not to Abram's descendants, as it says in Genesis 15. Who are his descendants now, and how do we know who they are?
But then if I'm going to go forth and say, well, you know, those that say that they are Jews but are in fact not, but are the synagogue of Satan, and the Ashkenazi are in fact not Jews, they are sons of Gomer, Japheth, they're not even Shemites. Many people have come to me and said, well, who are the real Jews then? Where are the Jews, and what's going on?
So I think it's fair to ask, who are they and how do we know? So the current prime minister's ancestors weren't from here within recorded history. He has no deed. Bibi Netanyahu, on one side, his family's from Poland. They're from Eastern Europe. So how do we know that he has a connection to the people who God promised the land to, Abram's descendants? How do we know that?
As I said, 92% of the people that say that they are Jews today are in fact Ashkenazi.
Netanyahu's parents did not speak Hebrew. Okay, they didn't live in this region. Netanyahu, the founders of this country, were mostly secular. Some of them were avowed atheists. They were not praying for the peace of Jerusalem. They weren't praying at all because they didn't believe in God. There's no genealogy linking their families to the people of this land 3,000 years ago. They're not.
Because what's happened is the Ashkenazi are in fact occupying the tents of Shem, the real Shemites. Shem's not there. It's the Zionist occupiers that are there.
So how do we know, since they didn't share a language, they didn't share a religion, they had no religion whatsoever, how do we know that they had a right to come here from Eastern Europe?
And if I'm right, it's 1982, and he didn't go by Benjamin Netanyahu back then. He went by whatever his more, European-sounded name was. He was Netanyahu by the 90s.
Why did he change his name?
Well, they all kind of, because the whole thing, Joe, is that they're all, Israel was a European, construct. They were made by a bunch of Europeans who came over and created Israel. But then they have to claim that they're the true Semitic people.
Is it true that genetic testing is outlawed there?
I believe that is true. I believe that's true. I mean, double check me on that, but I believe it's true.
We should definitely double check that
permission
right now
from the government to go get DNA tests and stuff.
Abram's descendants are the ones who have the right to have this land, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Why don't we do genetic testing on everybody in the land and find out who Abram's descendants are? It's really simple. We've cracked the human genome. We can do that. Why don't we do that? Would you be against doing that?
I have no idea what that would prove. I mean,
Really?
maybe it would be.
What do you mean? It would prove who Abram's descendants are and who has a right to live here and who doesn't, according to the theology that you yourself just explained. And so I'm very confused as to why we don't do that.
Well, this is the problem with the term Semitic.
Mm-hmm.
Because if these are European Jewish people, this is not the exact same genetics.
That's right. And
genetic testing
heavily
is
regulated.
Heavily. Here, you can fucking get it at Walgreens.
That's right. Yeah.
If you wanted if a human being has bodily autonomy and you want to find out where your ancestors came from, why wouldn't that be?
Would we do that all over the world?
Well,
and everybody
this is the only country in the
Brits?
world that you've said has this covenant with God, that this people have a moral and legal right to the land.
What about people who convert to Judaism? Would they have a right?
Well, you've just said.
I mean,
that
there are
it's not
converts to Judaism, so
you just told
they
me
can make Aliyah. They may not have.
You've just
DNA.
told me that it doesn't matter. You told me moments ago, trying to keep track, that it doesn't matter whether or not you believe in God or whether or not you practice Torah Judaism or Rabbinic Judaism, which is something else that I don't even know if we should. I don't even know what that means. But it doesn't matter whether you're, quote, a religious Jew or not. What matters is that you are part of the Jewish people to whom God gave this land that extends from the Nile to the Euphrates. And so if you believe that, wouldn't you want to know with a burning passion who those people are. And because of science, we can now know who those people are. So why aren't we finding out?
What do you think? You know,
well, look, like the only real answer to this is that the Israel project, or the Zionist project, always relied on this kind of claim, which is a crazy claim in a way. It's like a supernatural property right claim,
right?
That, you know, like that you have this, which, you know, if you go, there was that great documentary on the settlers in the West Bank, and they'll all tell you, to a man or to a woman, they focus a lot on that godmother of the settlers woman, but they'll all explain to you, like in very plain English with a Hebrew accent, that God promised them all this land. And so, like, God promised us all this land. So, like, I don't know who these other people are here, but God didn't promise it to them. He promised it to us. And so, well, let's just say, hypothetically, if, say, the truth is that the Jews of 2,000 years ago weren't actually kicked out of the land, but in fact, they were forced to convert, and that actually those people who you're saying were never promised the land are actually the people who were promised the land and then converted to Islam, and in fact you're just some European who came in here way after that. That, I'm just saying, hypothetically, if that was the case, that would be something that maybe you would want to control the information of.
Who are the true Jews? Well, the Fehalim, which is a term for the so-called Palestinians, the migrant farmers that never left the land of Israel in 70 of the Common Era when the Romans came in. They still were attached to the land. They were called the Fehalim, or what we call today the so-called Palestinians, are in fact the descendants of the poor agricultural Jewish society that stayed in the land, yet they converted to Islam in the 6th and 7th centuries to avoid paying the Islamic jizya tax, because if they had done that, they would have lost their land, and they were attached to the land, so therefore they converted to Islam so that they could stay in the land, working the soil that their forefathers worked. This is recognized in 1918 by the historians David Ben-Gurion, who of course was the future Prime Minister of Israel back then, and Yitzhak Ben-Zvi, the future President of Israel. Both of them historians recognize this fact. Today, of course, it's buried in your history books. But what about the affluent, regal Jews that weren't connected to the land? Because we've addressed who the poor migrant workers are, the Fehalim. But not everyone in the tribe of Judah was connected to the land. There was a royal, regal class that were merchants that would travel throughout the empire and throughout Judea and throughout the Roman Empire as merchants. These were the regal, affluent Jews that weren't connected to the land, but they were engaged in trade and export. Who are they? And where did these royal nomadic Jews migrate to?
I don't understand, and you're very discouraged in the United States from asking this question for some reason. It's a foundational question. But I just want to get to the point that forms the basis of this whole conversation, which is who has a right to the land?
Excuse me, Deuteronomy 28, verse 68. And Yahweh shall bring you into Mitzrayim, Egypt again with ships. And the way of which I said to you, you shall see it no more again. And there you shall be sold to your enemies for slaves and female slaves, and no man shall buy you. And that is what happened to the regal class of the house of Judah. The history of slavery? Why? Ask the bloody question. Why are they only teaching you the history of slavery as far back as the 16th and the 17th century? Why are they only going that far back? Because they don't want you to go farther back than that, because then you'll actually find out the truth. And you've got to understand and question, why do they do this throughout the whole of America, in all the public schools? Why do they only go back as far as the 16th and the 17th century to talk about slavery? Because Islam designed infernal slavery. And then the Ashkenazi Khazars, those who say they are Jews and are not, are the ones that marketed it. And the regal Negro nomads, exiled from the kingdom of Judah, were the main recipients of it at the hands of the indigenous black Africans. Because you've got to understand, the regal class of the house of Judah came down from Israel, and they came into the land of the black Africans. And the black Africans resented the regal class of the house of Judah in their land, because they had laws, they had customs, they had civility. And they were a regal class of Negro that came down into Africa. And later on, it was the Ashkenazi, the Islamic slave traders as well, that then worked together with the indigenous black Africans to enslave the regal house of Judah. This is what we've got to understand, but you've got to go back before the 16th century to understand the roots of it. And there were white Ashkenazi Khazar ship owners. There were the buyers and the sellers. And they're not going to fill you in on all of this, but really you've got a 4-tier system. Number one, you have the Negro nomads that were exiled from the kingdom of Judah. Number two, you had indigenous black African hunters that resented the regal Negro nomads that had come into their territory with their own customs, with their own laws that were different and would not assimilate into their tribal culture. They were their own tribe. They were the regal house of Judah. And number three, you had Islamic trappers that worked with the indigenous black Africans to trap the regal Negro house of Judah. And then you had them sell them to the Ashkenazi ship merchants, along with many Portuguese and British Ashkenazi. You see, it's just like Al-Qaeda today. Or is it ISIS? Or is it ISIL? Or is it IS? I mean, right? Let's just change the name as much as possible to throw you all off so you really don't know what's going on. Let's keep switching the identity to hide the people. Why don't we just keep renaming you? Are you Negro? Oh, no, you're not Negro. No, you're colored. No, you're not colored. You're African American. And this is what they name you. The slavers name you this. Because I know a white guy who grew up in South Africa, and he now lives in America. He is an African American, and more African American than most. Do you see how African American is a misnomer? It's a misnomer. Don't check that box. It's a title given to blacks by democratic slavers. Okay? Let's be real.
Ooh-wee. Tucker Carlson opened up a can of worms with that one, didn't he? Man, that's a highly sensitive, controversial topic and subject. But what did you all think of the video? I put that video together. I took all the compilation of the clips, put together a good narrative for you to let you know that the more you continue to pay attention, the further down the rabbit hole that you will go. And so how much further down the rabbit hole can you go? You will be surprised on what you discover and what you find, especially about your own history when it comes to your own identity. And so I want y'all all to do me one good favor right now. Please like the video, subscribe to my YouTube channel, man. We headed to 10K. We on the road to 10K subscribers. And if you don't know who I am, my name is YG Preach, man. And I'm dropping topics, hot controversial topics where I get a chance to give my commentary and give my perspective, the Preach perspective, serving as the voice of reason. But because this is a highly controversial topic, I really want to hear more from everyone else. We're currently entering into a paradigm shift right now, man. This is the first time in American history where a majority of Americans are actually empathizing with the plight and struggle of Palestinians. And then, as I said, the more you unpack the information that was discussed in this video, the more you're going to find out, you'll get closer and closer to the truth. So this begs the question, who are the true descendants of Israel? Who do you believe the true descendants of Israel are? One thing to pay attention to is that whenever black people seem to voice or echo the same sentiments of the thoughts and opinions of what you just watched, it seems like a lot of times black people get canceled. And just some past examples I want to remind you of is, for example, Kanye West. When he expressed his thoughts and beliefs that black people were the true Jews or descendants of Abraham or Israel. We've also seen Nick Cannon get canceled. We've also seen Kyrie Irving get canceled. So I just think it's kind of odd that when black people tend to voice their opinion on this topic, they get canceled for it. So it's just a pattern that I've noticed, and I'm hoping that you all notice the same thing. But in any event, I ain't going to say too much on it because I ain't trying to get canceled either. But other than that, man, like and subscribe to the video. It's your brother YG Preach. If you enjoy the content, be looking out for more. Like I said, a lot of my content is meant to invoke thought and learning. So I'm hoping that you continue to do your own research. Another thing, one last thing to pay attention to. The white pastor that talked about the misnomer of the term African American, I thought that was interesting because that clip was actually taken over 10 years ago. And so now when you see that correlation to the current Black American delineation movement, I think that was kind of odd that it aged in that manner. So just something else to pay attention to, y'all. Other than that, man, I'm signing off. Get with me. It's your brother YG Preach. Like and subscribe to my channel. Like the video. We out.